we are now joined on the Voices for Victory podcast by Daryn Young. Daryn not only works for our friends from Constellation Brands and the Beer Division, who've helped raise millions in support of the V Foundation every year, but he's also a cancer survivor himself. Daryn, appreciate you stopping by to chat today.
Appreciate you having me on. It's always good to talk to somebody from the V Foundation.
So Daryn, to start off, I want to get into everything Constellation does for the V Foundation. But first, I was hoping you could share a little bit of your personal story with our listeners. From the beginning, what was it that first led to your initial cancer diagnosis?
Well, actually, it was really a surprise for me. It's coming up on 5 years now. So 5 years ago, I guess early in the year, I really just went in for a routine physical, and really no symptoms, no real expectation that I would have anything, really wrong, and certainly not cancer. But through that, when I got the results back from my doctor, kind of said, "Hey, your PSA is a little bit high here. You might want to look into that." Which, quite honestly, at that point, I didn't know what PSA even was. So I thought, well, that's really strange, so I had no idea what that was. So I did a little research, started looking into what that meant, and went, well, that can't be right. So through some conversation with the doctor, we thought, maybe we need to try that again. So we did it again, and it was elevated again. So at that point, I was kind of on the road to a urologist, and so with the elevated readings of my prostate, started that process. Had conversations with urologists, and then they kind of said, "Hey, it's probably nothing at your age." At the time, had just turned. I was almost ready to turn 53. So they were saying, "Hey, at your age, it's probably really nothing. Could be a lot of different things." So kind of was on the fence of whether we should do a biopsy or not. And so I thought, well, why not? Let's just do it. So went ahead, had the biopsy, and then got the results back. That was positive. So was a little surprised by that. And ironically, it was March of 2017. And so right in the midst of our V Foundation crank up and everything we were doing at retail, raising money for the V Foundation and our whole annual program. Which really kind of kicks off with March Madness and everything. So the real ironic part was the day I went in and talked to the doctor about the results and got the news was the first day of the tournament that year. So I thought, wow, this is really, really strange how this worked out. But as we're kicking off the tournament, I was excited to go home and see the opening games. So it was kind of changed things a little bit. But so it was really one of those things that was fortunate with early detection. And really it was the PSA screening that triggered it for me. And so then kind of went down that road of treatment options and different things at that point. So that's really kind of how it all started.
Yeah, and I know early detection is something that we're focusing more and more on. I know it's a focus of some of our signature events fundraising this year. Did your doctors kind of have a conversation with you about, how lucky you were to have it detected when you did?
Yeah, and I would tell you, and again, certainly I'm not a doctor, right? And but I learned a lot, and so one of the things I've learned, and again, I'm not giving doctors advice, but is that typically males or when they're having their prostate screened in a routine physical, it's an uncomfortable situation. But what I learned, really at that point, if things are being detected at that point, it's probably really too late. And so really PSA screening is really the first line of defense there. And so what I learned is because I had turned 50, they just did that. But really, and I think one of the things that I try to tell anybody and everybody that listens is when you have a physical, ask for it, because it's the same blood test you already take. It's just one more test they need to screen for. For whatever reason, they don't do it until you reach a certain age. And so it's very simple. And that way it's detected early. And you don't have to wait until it's maybe too late and can really deal with it. So early detection really was probably the key for me, and probably saved my life.
And I think that's something that I know we talk about when I talk to people who've been through something like what you've been through. And I think this is sort of a generality, but I think men tend to not want to do this kind of stuff, right? Like, I don't need my physical every year. I don't want to go to the doctor, right? All that stuff. This goes to show the importance not only of your yearly physical, just to make sure everything's going fine, even if nothing is wrong, seemingly, but to also advocate for yourself for these kind of tests to make sure everything is okay and you're moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell you, if there's one thing that I took away from this is trying to tell everybody, hey, listen, and again, you're right. Men tend to say, yeah, I don't want to go into physical. And I'll tell you what, once you get to that 40 age, men really don't want to go out to physical because it involves a prostate test. And so that's people avoid that thing, right? So it's like, listen, have the blood test done. If you're getting your cholesterol checked and your sugar checked, it's the same blood test. They've already got it. Just have that done. And that's really the early detection. And it's very simple. And when I've talked to several people that have gone in and had that done and said, you know what, thanks, because I didn't know, or, people just don't realize that that's out there and available. And it really is a better early detection than anything they're going to do in the office.
So after your diagnosis, your doctors come up with a plan. You mentioned to me that you ended up going with a surgical procedure that has worked, and thank goodness you're cancer free. What was that decision making like, and sort of the process of once the diagnosis happens, sort of next steps?
Yeah. So for me, and again, certainly it's different for everybody. I'll tell you, I was very fortunate. I was very fortunate to be in a situation where, they felt like, hey, it's something that's not growing fast. It's not a fast growing type of cancer. So you had a little time to make some decisions. So over the course of a couple of months, I had some time to kind of digest it, look into different treatment options. Certainly radiation was one of those options. And there's a lot of, there's a lot of different options now for prostate cancer. And so kind of looked at the risks and the benefits of each one. For me personally, it just made more sense and more of a situation. I just want this out. I want it out of me. And so the radical prostatectomy is a little difficult. It's a robotic. So did some research and found somebody here in the Northwest that is really one of the leading surgeons in the country. Also had that procedure. So, so I met with him down at Swedish in Seattle and had some conversations with him, and he'd actually had the procedure done himself. So it was kind of good to, have that knowledge of what he'd been through and what that entails. And so for me, it was an option of just doing it, taking care of it to know at that point, because it's so deep in your body that there's really no way to know if it's escaped the prostate until they can get in there and get the tissue. I could have done the radiation and all the other treatments, would do, virtually can treat it, and people do that and have success, but then you're just continually having the blood tests. And if it does pop up and you've radiated, now you're kind of in a situation where you can't have surgery and there's no other option at that point. So I opted for that. And then always knowing that if it comes back, then I do still have the option of radiation or some chemo. So for me, it made sense. And so, again, I was, like the doctor told me, hey, it's not a fast growing cancer, but if I was 73, they'd probably say, hey, you know what, something else is going to get you before this does. But at my age at that time, just roughly almost 53, you probably need to deal with this. And so we went through that process, looked at all the options. Again, for me, that was just the clear option of just trying to rid it, and then also know exactly where I was. And so after surgery, they were able to tell me that, they could take the lymph nodes and look around and make sure that they were pretty 199% confident that it had not escaped. And so kind of knowing that was assuring. And then now the PSA test every 6 months, just to make sure nothing had escaped, microscopically or anything like that. And so far, so good. So it's been so far a success for me and a success story. So, but again, everybody's situation is different. Certainly there's a lot of people who have a lot more difficult situations than me. But I would tell you just the technology and the early detection and the things that now are doctors and people are capable of doing is just tenfold from what it used to be.
Yeah, and I know that's something you mentioned before too. Is just the importance of funding more research, because it opens more doors. It gives people more choices. It helps us detect things earlier. And I know that that's something that you've mentioned to me that it has helped kind of drive your passion, right, for working with the V Foundation through Constellation.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And it's one of those things that I think that I'm proud to work for Constellation, because with our partnership with the V Foundation, that's just been something that has been phenomenal. Me personally, even before my diagnosis, I just felt like, hey, this is a great partnership. We have a lot of people that in our organization and in my team, my my manager and everybody, that are truly passionate about it. We talk about it every year, but it's, in some form, take me out of the equation. Everybody knows somebody that either personally have been affected by it or know somebody that's been affected by cancer. And so it hits home with everybody. And so it's just one of those things. So our association with the V Foundation to me is paramount. And I love the fact that we're a partner with the V Foundation. It's truly one of the great organizations that we can do and raise money for. So we're passionate about it. We really are. And out here, like I say, my manager, he's all in, and he's big on this, and our team is as well. And so every year we kind of make sure we're still doing the fundraising things and making sure we're trying to do our part to raise as much money as we can, because it's just critical. And ironically, I talk about the March Madness and everything, and I think the part that's really ironic with the whole thing and unfortunate is I watch a Jimmy V speech every year. I just think it's truly one of the greatest speeches ever given, and for a lot of different reasons. And so in fact, years ago, before all this, before our partnership even, we were in a presentation class, and the presenter talked about this speech as one of the greatest speeches ever given. So we got a lot of backstory before we were ever partnered with the V Foundation, right? And talked about how sick, Jim Valvano really was before he went up on that stage, and all the backstory that nobody really knows. And so every year during our Jimmy V kickoffs with our distributor partners, we'd love to show that video and give people the backstory, how sick he truly was in getting up on stage and could barely get out of bed to get there, and then got up on stage and delivered that speech with energy and passion. And then you can see, and I tell him, watch him as he comes out of there, he can barely stand up. And yet, the person that's holding him up and took him up there was Dick Vitale. And so, truly one of the great people in the organization raising money for the V Foundation. I was fortunate to go to one of the galas and had a chance to meet Dick and be at his house and watch what he does with this and how much passion he puts into the V Foundation and raising money. And the fact that now he's in his own fight just strikes me as totally ironic, but just, certainly unfortunate. But it just shows you how much this affects everybody and every single person when you go back and look at that speech and he's there to help his friend. And yet now he's the one in that situation. It's one of those challenges that everybody has, but I think the V Foundation is one of those great organizations that's leading the way in raising money and getting the research and working for cures and working for treatment.
Yeah, no, a wonderful point on Dick. As we all know, he does so much for raising money for pediatric cancer research and all he does. And we're certainly wishing him the best as he continues on in his cancer battle that he's in now. A little bit, I just want to dive in a little bit more on Constellation and sort of how the whole effort works, Daryn, for those who aren't familiar. I grew up around the beer business. My dad worked for a Constellation distributor for most of his career. One of my best friends does the same now. And so I have always gotten it. I remember my dad talking about the Jimmy V partnership years ago when it first started. Sort of for people who aren't aware of kind of how Constellation works with all these distributors across the country to help fundraise, kind of break down the process of how you all get together and then how the fundraising works.
Yeah. So we've gone from this being, kind of a retail program, which we still do some stuff at retail. So March Madness, our displays is, for instance, we'll put up Jimmy V Foundation stuff and making sure people are aware of it. So it's really kind of our billboard to get that out to consumers and to the public, right? That, hey, it's March Madness time. People are thinking about basketball and everything is going on with it, and really kind of use that tie-in that, hey, this is kind of our partnership. And so we're raising money that way and put the information out there for people to donate. Outside of the retail piece, which again, in the past year has always been, so much per case goes into this thing. So the more we sell, the more we donate as a company. We've really grown. And me personally here in the Northwest, we have a great distributor partner in Columbia Distributing that is passionate about this as well. And so they've really gotten behind this as well as a distributor. And so not only do they sign up every year to make a big donation just on behalf of them as a company, then our fundraising efforts in the community go into that as well. So we've done different things through the years, from golf tournaments to raise money for the V Foundation to, raffles and on-premise promotions during basketball and having, retail outlets, collecting money and raising money during the March Madness tournaments. And, from retail to that to, really now they're shifted this year to do a big, they're doing a large raffle. So it's out there for consumers and everybody can join. So they'll put up $10,000 this year. We have a brand manager that's really kind of running this for Columbia, and Steve McCann, who's put this together, and it's really a pretty cool deal now where people go in. We've got like $10,000 worth of prizes. We've donated some stuff. Columbia's donated some stuff to put $10,000 worth of prize in there to try to raise at least 25,000. I think we'll probably raise more than that, in addition to what they do as a donation as a company. So we're fortunate to have a great partner like that with Columbia that really does want to activate this and raise money. And they're passionate about it, just like we're passionate about it, and want to give back and really kind of help out. So.
And you all have distributors all across the country, like Columbia, in their respective areas, who are doing the same things to kind of rally together, to come together to raise money for the V Foundation. It's a wonderful cause. And we're lucky to have Constellation as such a wonderful partner. I know Jim Ryan on the Constellation team, who works closely with our team here at the V Foundation, is the most passionate and supportive person in terms of the V Foundation partnership and continuing to drive that too. I know Jim works his tail off to make sure everyone is on top of their fundraising game every year around the country for this.
Jim Ryan is a saint. I mean, and if he hasn't been anointed, he should be soon. I mean, the guy's incredible, and his passion behind this and bringing this to our company is paramount. I mean, the guy is incredible. I mean, you want to talk about a class individual. Jim Ryan has really been the one that led this charge and put this on the map. So yeah, absolutely.
I wondered, Daryn, and you mentioned that, this partnership has been going on since before your diagnosis, and it's been important to you since the beginning. I know how passionate your whole team is about this from day one. But after what you went through and kind of saw personally that side of it, you know what it's like to have the doctor say you have cancer, which is a frightening experience, I'm sure. What does it mean to you now to see the commitment and the motivation of all these people involved with Constellation for continuing to fund research through the V Foundation?
Yeah, is it different? I suppose a little bit, but again, I look at myself as somebody who's very fortunate, right? My story's not a real tough one, like a lot of people have, and I know there's a lot of people that have a lot tougher road than I have had, and still have, and so I think it's important, like I say, that I think even whether it's you're personally touched by it or somebody, which unfortunately I know a lot of people that are and have been, that's really where it hits home too, is just the fact that even if it's not you, it's certainly somebody or close to you. So it does really hit home, whether it's the fact that you had it or not. Again, I guess for me, is it a little bit closer to home? Sure. But does it make me more passionate about it? I don't know, because I think before we were all passionate, because I think more about the people I know that are going through tougher situations than what I had to go through, or have gone through. So, and that's the hope that the technology catches up and can help some people that are really in a lot tougher situation, that it's there and it's close, and there's progress made every year. And I think the fact that, it's one of those things where, again, in a sales meeting, we say, hey, listen, if 1 in 3 people are going to be afflicted with it, and it's, if you're sitting in a chair, look to your left and look to your right, it's just that close. And it's one of those things where it's everybody gets affected by it one way or another. And everybody needs to kind of do their part and try and do something about it, which I think is fantastic that the V Foundation really does that.
You and we're lucky to have so many people like you on the Constellation team who feel that way and have continued to push this partnership further and further. And the amount of fundraising that comes in every year from Constellation, millions of dollars through this partnership, has just been incredible. I want to go back. You mentioned that you've watched the Jim speech frequently. And you think it's one of the greatest speeches you've ever seen. I, of course, agree. Yeah. It's one I never get tired of watching and have to watch a lot for my job, but it never tires on me. I wonder, do you have a favorite part of the speech, one that maybe you go to and say that this is the one I'm going to rewatch if I'm just watching a few minutes?
I watched the whole thing from beginning to end. I really do. And again, I think knowing a little bit of the backstory and things like that of just how difficult it was for him to get up there, but just watch the energy that he brought. But I think, when he's closing it, it's really tough to. I watch this thing every year. I watch as my kids were growing up, I made them watch this because you need to understand that this is a person who knows he's dying, but wants to do something for everybody else and really, setting this thing in motion. And it's incredible the courage and the strength that he had in that moment to carry that out. And so, I think it's the story of, again, where I've been, where I'm at, and where I'm going, and that's something that people do, and the passion for living and enjoying your life day to day, because you just never know what's going to happen. And I think you look at a person that had been so successful like him as a coach and mentoring, young people and having those people grow up to be good people. Really just became something that he's known as a great basketball coach. This is probably the lasting legacy of Jim Valvano, right? Is that he's doing something to try to help everybody in this fight. So, yeah, other pieces of it, yeah, every bit of it, but I can't watch it without watching it beginning to end, quite honestly, because the whole thing is just so impactful.
Yeah, there's no skips when you're watching that.
There's
series,
not,
right?
no. There's no part of it. Hey, I'll go buy that. So,
Right. Well, Daryn, thank you so much for dropping by and sharing your story with us. Great to hear that you're continuing to do well and your scans are looking great. And we wish you the best moving forward. And also for all you and your team at Constellation do for us at the V Foundation, we are forever grateful for all the great work you all put in every year, and looking forward to another great year of partnership here in 2022.
Yeah, we are too. Nick, appreciate the time. And what we do is it's not enough. So, we're gonna continue to do more because the fight continues, and certainly the technology and the gains are there, right? So the gains are getting made, and so we got to keep funding that and make sure we take care of that. So, but appreciate everything you guys do, really. So, more importantly, the work that you guys are doing is what's really important. So we appreciate that.
Well, thanks again for dropping by, Daryn. Take care.
All right, thanks.